Welcome, everybody, to Tuesday, February 7th, Board of Selectmen's meeting. A little after 6:30. We're going to go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, discussion of classification and compensation strategy for Steelworkers Union. We'll come out of executive session at or around 7 o'clock, and I'll read the rest of the agenda at that time. Can I have a motion to go into executive session?
Move to go into executive session.
For
Purposes
of collective bargaining.
collective bargaining.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Welcome back, everybody, to the Tuesday, February 7th, 2017 Board of Selectmen's meeting. We just exited from executive session. Now we're going to start our regular session. I'll read the agenda. 7 o'clock, citizens input. 7:05, Matthew Gonzalez, Eagle Scout Project. 7:15, public hearing, Farmers Auto Brokers, Paul Farmer, vote discuss application of a Class 2 used car dealer's license. 7:25, public hearing, Mandarin Chef, Mr. Lin, vote discuss exchange of annual all-alcohol restaurant license for annual all-alcohol downtown node license. 7:35, commuter rail pilot program, consideration and possible vote to continue the board support of the commuter rail pilot program. 8:05, budget discussion. 8:35, selectmen's update. 8:45, town manager's update. 8:55, assistant town manager's update. And then action items. Bill, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We'll pass 7. Is there anybody here for citizens input? Seeing none, we'll go right into our 7:05. Matthew? Welcome.
Hello, thank you.
You just state your name for the record.
Matthew Gonzalez. Good evening and thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Matthew Gonzalez and I'm an Eagle Scout candidate from Troop 32. And here tonight I am to present my Eagle Scout project. I've had the honor of placing flags around the center since I was a Tiger Cub in first grade. Over the years, with the growth and constructions of things around town, I've noticed that there's no longer any consistency with the flag placement and that there are different numbers of flags on the same street and large gaps between some flags and small gaps between others. For my Eagle Scout project, I'll be working with Mr. Gallagher from the Town and Highway Department on placement of new holes to make the center more visually pleasing. And to finish off my Eagle project, I will purchase new poles and flags needed to make sure that they're all consistent. I'm working with Mr. Johns from Veteran Services to decide what is needed for this side of the project. We currently have 58 American flags and 66 holes in the sidewalk around the common and the side streets. The finished project would have no more than 75 holes around the common, extending 2 to 3 flags down each side street, and possibly extending down South Street to Liberty Street, or possibly to in front of the new town hall. My goal is to have my project completed for Armed Forces Day, which is May 20th, 2017. And I have maps with the current location of drilled holes and the areas where I'd like to have them placed. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I met with Matt last week?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
And he's obviously a fine young man. He's got a great project for the town, and I thought it would be very interesting for the public to see this as well as the board. I've given him my permission to move forward, but I thought it'd be nice for you to hear it as well. So that's why he's here.
Thank you. Do you have a budget of dollars that you're trying to raise?
Yes.
That maybe we can get the message out and help kick off some of the fundraising for you?
I'm hoping to raise $5,800 between fundraising and donations, whether it be from groups or from stores that could provide materials for the project. So $5,800 is my estimated total cost. And I will be doing my fundraising portion through Kickstarter, hopefully, yes.
Kickstarter.
Matthew, in the past, this was many years ago, when they first started the project about putting the flags around, people could purchase or donate to purchase a flag and have it dedicated. I believe there was a space for the name on there. Is that something that you would be doing?
Yes, that is what my what I'm hopefully going to do for fundraising. I will have plaques with that say dedicated or in memory of or donated by one of someone's family, and then those flags would be put out first on the common, and I wouldn't have any more than 75 of them because that's how many holes I would hope to have, or
Okay.
however many holes.
Now, you're going through Kickstarter. Is that the only vehicle that you'll be using for fundraising, or could you do something like in the newspaper? Because not everybody is
Yes.
computer literate, and, you know, maybe they could fill out a form, send a check, and is that something that you would
Yes, they can do that
contemplate?
too. I'll hopefully get an ad out in the newspaper, and then it'll be the same thing, just handwritten out. They fill a form, they have it say what they'd want written on it, and they send it to me in mail or somehow get it to me. I'll have emails and addresses posted for that, and I can't handle the money myself. It has to go either through the troop or Veteran Services or someone else, because an individual is not allowed to handle the money in Boy Scout Eagles projects.
Yeah, okay, thank
Matthew,
you.
we'd be happy to be a collection site at Town Hall, you know, with the exception of when we're moving, but I think your project will be done by then. So we could maybe dedicate a place at our counter for you, for people to drop off forms, and maybe you could even give us your link for your Kickstarter.
All right. Thank you.
So I'm gonna help you out right here.
Mhm.
So Bara, when you interview this fine young man,
Don't worry, I'm already on it.
he'll be able to get all his donation locations and his contact information into the paper, and that'll save you an ad.
We'll do everything we can to support you on this. It's a great project. Thank you for
Thank
doing
you.
it.
Are you
Thank
gonna, Matt, are you gonna be going through the existing inventory and replacing?
I will be
Warren?
going. Yes, I'll be going through the inventory, and I'll be replacing old flags, and I'll definitely be needing to obtain more flags by buying them or getting them donated, or however I will go about that. But I will be using the current flags that we have, and keep some of the old ones and get new ones. So.
Now, in your past, because I know I've seen you up there a million times doing it, so I thank you. Some of the existing flags, like Ginny was saying, have names embroidered into the flag. So just keep that in mind. If any of those are about to be replaced, I would try to track down that family to see if they want to do it. So total new flags that will be up there is a total of 15 additional flags, if my math is right, right?
Yes, about.
Okay. Okay.
Don't have the exact numbers down yet. I'm having a meeting later this week to get the exact number.
Okay, all right. It's a great project.
Thank you.
I'm gonna ask one favor.
Mhm.
Will you come back in a month and let us know how you're making out?
I can definitely do that.
Okay, give us an update, and if you need another push, we can get the word out.
All right.
All right? Great. Any other questions from the board? No. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thanks to his parents, too.
Okay. Couple minutes short of 7:15.
Want to ask him a couple more questions?
Matt, what grade are you in?
10th grade.
10th grade?
And I go to Norfolk Aggie over in Walpole.
How many more badges do you need?
I need to finish up 2 more merit badges.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll give you some expert advice from being a former Scoutmaster and 2 sons that are Eagle Scouts. Do the paperwork as soon as this project's done. Don't wait.
A donation would have been better.
Trust me, I'm gonna give him a donation.
think we all should give them a donation.
Absolutely.
Very worthwhile project.
All right, we stalled long enough. 7:15.
7:15. Okay, Doc, will you read that?
Yep. The Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, February 7th, 2017, beginning at 7:15 in the Foxborough High School Media Center, 120 South Street, on the application of a Class II used car dealer's license for Paul M. Farmer, doing business as Farmers Auto Brokers, 100A Green Street, Foxborough. All interested parties are welcome to attend.
Paul? And before we get started, full disclosure, Paul helped me with my campaign 2 years ago, so I want to thank him for that. And I also want to say thank you for the signs around the common. Great job.
Great job.
It was a great project.
Okay, down to business. So, what are we doing here?
So why don't you just describe for the board what you're planning to do, Paul?
Basically, what is it, a Class II used car dealership license to basically do online and auto auction type auto sales.
There'll be no storage of vehicles on site?
I spoke with Bill Caspara. There might be one or two coming back and forth, but not your red and yellow pennant style Paul's used cars
Okay.
lot. The business address is purely just for that, just an office and a business address.
And that's your home address, or is it? you're
No,
working
that's the
at-
business address on Green Street.
I see.
100A Green Street, I believe, is on the application.
Yeah.
100.
And that's zone commercial, correct?
Across the street is zone commercial, I believe, special use on that side.
Home business type thing?
Yeah, I
Business
think
is
so. I think it's pre-existing non-conforming.
If it's pre-existing non-conforming, that goes, it's not the use that is exempted. You know, it's the building itself as pre-existing non-conforming, not the use.
I'm not exactly sure. I know when I came up for the sign business, it had to be approved as a sign business.
Yeah.
And publicly done. This is just a business address. It's not being used for the purpose of car sales on the lot, as I understood it with, when I spoke to Bill. And
So
I
you've
think,
reviewed this with Bill Caspar for zoning enforcement?
yes, as a matter of
Okay.
fact, we actually added a second letter, I believe, in the packet there that states, he wanted me to just state clearly that it was not going to be a, 17 cars on the lot for sale type of a situation. So if it was to be that, that would have to be a zoning board issue, I would imagine, to
Right.
get a special use permit.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So you're gonna, auto auction and internet sales?
Correct.
How does that work?
Believe it or not, there's a big business out there that people just buy cars and bring them directly to auto auctions and not really do public sales of the cars, so.
So that's what the intent is, you're gonna buy them online, send them directly to auction? and then-
Correct. Or, as the name implies, broker them if you were to be looking for, a new Ferrari this year or whatever it happens to be, the people who go to the Super Bowl drive.
This is getting interesting.
Sorry I asked the question.
We would be advertising that people could come directly to us and we could find a vehicle like
So
that.
you're basically an agent for the buyer?
Correct.
Any other questions? from the board?
It's pretty similar to the one we did on Leonard Street.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same idea.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that the vehicles that are on the site, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if they're vehicles that have been delivered, and that the person would come and then pick up the vehicle from that
Correct.
location? Okay.
Mhm. It could be a Monday pickup and it's a Tuesday auction type of a thing.
see.
But,
Okay.
and if at all possible, they'll be stored inside. I probably have the capability of storing 4 to 5 to possibly 6 vehicles inside the building.
If you needed to, yeah.
Correct.
Right?
Move to approve Paul Farmer's,
Karen.
I'm sorry?
Sorry.
Oh.
Sorry, public hearing. Hold on, hold that thought.
Yeah.
Anybody in the audience have any objection or want to make any comments? Anybody? Anybody at all? Nope. Okay.
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye. Move to approve Paul Farmer's Class 2 used car dealer's license.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Good luck.
Can I just add one thing while I'm here? I wanted to thank Jim for his help on that project up in the center of town, who really spearheaded it and came up actually with a lot of those good sayings, some that could and couldn't be used.
Probably the ones that-
I also notice around a lot of the poles around town, you have those poles where you can hang a pennant from the light poles, and I'd love to help out with a project to maybe get permission to do home of 5-time Super Bowl champion. So if you happen to look into that and it's possible to do, let me know. I'd love to help out.
Perfect.
It might be something that's nice for the Founder's Day or something like that, you know, to have something like that.
Yeah.
Hopefully if that's, if we can somehow work that into a part of the parade, it'd be kind of a nice thing.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks,
Thank
Paul.
you, Paul.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul.
Good luck.
Just make sure they're high enough so no people don't take them.
Borrow them.
That was Jim's other big job.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
We have a couple minutes. We'll do some action items.
Sure. All right. Move to approve the 6th Annual Bailey's Run for Autism on 4/2/17 from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Move to accept a gift donation of $350 to the Council on Aging for Jack Craig on 1/11 and 1/18 from the Friends of Foxborough Seniors.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Move to accept a gift donation in the amount of $90 to the Council on Aging for half of December 2016 Tai Chi class from the Friends of Foxborough Seniors.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Move to accept a gift donation in the amount of $100 to the Veterans Affairs for Iraq and Afghanistan War Memorial from David and Mary Gaffey.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Move to accept a gift donation in the amount of $25 to the veterans for the Iraq and Afghanistan War Memorial from V. Taylor Ford Jr.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Right.
Move to approve the 12/13/2016 Board of Selectmen minutes.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Mary Beth, you want to give the Assistant Town Manager's update?
Sure, I'd be
In
happy
In
to.
3 minutes or less?
I do, I have 3 minutes or less. Just besides congratulations to our Super Bowl champs, we've been busy preparing for the start of fire negotiations with an impending storm on Thursday. It may not take place, but working hard on that. With the board's recent vote, we'll be meeting with the steelworkers regarding a classification and compensation plan, and we're starting with all of the town and school unions, our health insurance negotiations. We're going into the formal PEC process for that at the end of February. I wanted to, on behalf of the Human Services Department, invite residents to a 6-week free workshop that the Human Services Department is presenting. It's to reduce stress and boost energy levels. It's no experience required. It's for all adults of all ages who live or work for the town of Foxborough. And it's Dr. Sang Kim, and it's basically relaxation, stretching, how to cope with stress, mindfulness, and it'll be held at the Ahern Middle School. The way to sign up is to contact our Human Services Department directly at 508-543-1234. It's a Wednesday from 4:30 to 5:30, beginning on March 1st, again at the Ahern Middle School gym, and that's free for anyone who would like to participate. That's all I have.
Okay. Good timing. 7:25?
The Board of Selectmen, acting as the legal licensing authority pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 138, will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, February 7th, 2017, beginning at 7:25 PM in the Foxborough High School Media Center, 120 South Street, on the exchange of an annual all-alcohol restaurant license for an annual all-alcohol downtown node license granted by Chapter 308 Special Legislation for Lin and Zoo Incorporated, doing business as Mandarin Chef, 34 Mechanic Street, manager Wang Lin. All interested parties are welcome to attend.
Paul? Mr. Lynn?
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
How are you?
Ready when you are.
Okay. So this is to transfer the license.
Right, this is a follow-up to the board's action that took place earlier this year, or actually earlier last year, where the board granted a all-alcohol license to this establishment, to Mandarin Chef, for purposes of serving alcohol on the premises. The condition that the board had placed on it was that the board had granted the license with the condition that if the node-specific licenses had been subsequently approved, that they would be back before you to surrender the all-alcohol general license back to the board in exchange for the node-specific license. Subsequent to the approval process, the board received indication from the legislature that the node-specific licenses were approved, I believe it was in November, late November, early December of 2016. And such, this is a follow-up action to the earlier action taken by the board to move forward on granting the new license and surrendering the second one, the first one.
Mark, do you have anything to add to that, or?
No, I think that's a fairly accurate representation of what brings us here tonight.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
No, pretty straightforward.
How's it been going with the all alcohol license?
Better and better because we just have only 2 months now, right? So we need more times to getting better and better, but still much better than before though.
Good.
Good.
Yeah,
Good to
thank
hear
you.
that.
Thank you.
Okay.
One point of clarification, there's not going to be a new fee for the issuance of this new license. And my client is,
I don't believe so.
he had to pay for
It's one fee.
the initial
It's
and
supposed to
then
be a
the
swap.
renewal
Yeah,
right
yeah,
away.
Because we already
just
paid
a swap.
twice already last year.
Okay,
That was
I
not-
just wanted to make sure
That
that
was
we
not the
asked.
intent. We're not gonna stick you up twice.
I'd like to buy a flag to put out.
Well, actually, he did get stuck twice because they had the license and then renewal happened virtually
yeah.
immediately.
Simultaneously.
Yeah.
Can't help you with that one.
No, I understand. I just didn't want to have a third round.
Yeah, no, that wasn't the intent. Okay. Is there anybody in the audience that has any comments regarding this transfer? Is it transfer?
Exchange.
Exchange, yeah.
Exchange,
License
yes.
exchange, right.
Okay. Seeing none,
Move to close public meeting.
Second.
motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Do we move to accept the exchange?
Yes, I would
Yeah.
ask the board to just approve the exchange of the licenses.
Move to approve the exchange of licenses for the Mandarin Chef restaurant.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Excellent.
Good.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Have a great night.
Have a good night.
Check it out. Should ask him if he's open late after these meetings.
I know.
Okay, we can go right into the commuter rail pilot program. Consideration and possible vote to continue the board's support of the commuter rail pilot program. We continue this from our last meeting in an effort to to find out more information regarding a layover, what happens at a layover. I know a couple of members went down to the Situate layover. We've asked Ryan Colahane from MBTA, Dan Krantz from the Craft Group. If you guys can come up to the table.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just say, I also visited the location. It's actually located at Greenbush, which is the specific name, which is a station location for the layover site. The observation I had was that that station particularly is a 3-track station, I believe, as opposed to, or 3 or 4 track station. Is it 5? Is it 5? Okay.
5-track layover.
So, you know, with one active line, of course, and then two, and then becomes a layover station at night. The observation I made was that in going down there was, I went there on a Saturday morning, so I was there early, but I did see the train pull in, and the other trains were there, and they were plugged in. They were not operating. The engines were not running. They were plugged in as we had been discussed earlier. It was actually timely in the sense that when I got there, that the train actually pulled in. It was, I was able to then go around the sound wall. There was a sound wall on the other side of the tracks to observe to see if I could hear anything, and I actually could not hear a thing. It was quite interesting for me to witness that. There were not a lot of people there. Of course, it was a Saturday morning, so therefore it was not all that active. But generally speaking, the observations I made were, well, it was really not much to talk about. It was pretty quiet, and it was pretty well constructed, and actually quite, you know, there seemed very little impact in that respect. So that was just my observations. I just wanted to enter that into the record.
Ryan, can you just give the folks at home just a brief explanation, what happens at a layover, and what, in your opinion, being the in rail operations, what the primary function is?
Sure, absolutely. First, thank you very much for having me up here tonight. So, a layover facility is a location that we use primarily at the endpoints of any line that commuter rail operates on, and that facility is there to have a place to park trains. Of course, the nature of commuter rail operations is trains originate from outlying points, and they make their way towards Boston in this case. To deadhead or move empty trains around the network doesn't benefit anybody at all. So we construct these facilities so we have a place to berth trains overnight so that they're at a location that we need them for the morning. These locations, and as you mentioned, the location in Situate at the Greenbush station, which is a little different because the actual passenger station is incorporated in the layout. So typically at these layovers, train sets, locomotive and coaches, they get inspected for their daily run. Housekeeping items like interior cleanings, if a headlight bulb needs to be changed for that train to get into Boston, occasionally a brake shoe. But that's the extent of any heavy work. There's typically not fueling, there's no heavy repairs, no running repairs. So these facilities are equipped just for that. They're made for a place to park trains. You mentioned the ground power stations.
Yes.
That is standard at all of our layovers, and what that does is allow us to power up the trains. Of course, everything on board the train needs electricity for the HVAC systems, lighting. So those stations provide power for that to avoid having to run the locomotive. On top of that, in particularly this time of year, those systems also power a layover protection system on the locomotives. Diesel locomotives require water. They don't use antifreeze like an automobile. So to keep that water from this time of year turning into ice, those layover systems keep the water heated, and they keep the water circulating through the block. Not only does it avoid damage from freeze, but it also makes it easier to start these in the morning. And also, it also heats the oil for that reason, just to keep it from, being a stone-cold big diesel engine. We also equip these facilities with, we call it a yard air system. If you notice, there was also an air line hooked up.
Yes.
But what that does is it greatly reduces the amount of idling that we need to do. Of course, train brakes are controlled by air. It's a pneumatic system. And to build up enough air pressure to do the prescribed brake tests prior to service, it takes a lot of air. So to cut down on that, those trains overnight get hooked up to that stationary air supply, again, so the locomotive does not have to run. The Greenbush facility, tucked way in the corner, it's probably a 10 by 10 building with an air compressor inside of it. It's sound insulated, so that keeps that noise to a bare minimum. And these layovers also are the reporting location for the train crews, conductors, engineers, and a small handful of support staff to perform the inspections. So those folks also, they report to work there, they go home from there. I'd like to point out too that Greenbush facility also has a maintenance of way base, a place for the folks that work on the track. They store a lot of equipment there, ties, pieces of rail. That's unique to that facility again.
It's not something that's proposed
No,
at this location.
no. The facility that I have for those purposes in this area is at Walpole.
I see.
Yeah. So that's basically the primary reason for a layover facility. Since I know David, Jim, and Virginia, I know we had a chance to meet out there. Do you have any questions since we last met about the operation?
I don't, no, I think I reached out to you post that meeting and asked you probably another 10 questions, I think. But anybody from the board has
just
any
a
questions?
couple questions. So I did go out there, and I wasn't on a Saturday. It was a weekday. We met out there at 6:30 in the morning, and there were trains parked and running, so a little different. So I did see the wall, and I saw the setup, and then we went to the other side, and there is vibrations and there is noise. There's no doubt you can hear it from the other side of the wall. Probably 12, 15-foot wall, maybe, sectional wall. I don't know, but
Top of a locomotive is right around 15 feet.
15 feet, yeah. So it was pretty level with the top.
Yeah, I would imagine it was built a few feet above.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a different type of neighborhood on the other side. There was some commercial buildings, one story, probably closer than what some of the houses are in Foxborough. But I definitely could hear the noise.
Multiple trains, maybe that was different, but I didn't hear, with the one, I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, and there was signs on there of when it turns on and when it has to be off. And for instance, on that one, you can turn it on at 4:06 in the morning. So that's when the trains go on, and you can smell the diesel and you can hear it. So I just want to be clear that is an issue out there. The question I have is, and we kind of asked it last time when you went out there, that it's great you have a mitigation wall and it's a controlled area. I was under the impression that that was done as a standard procedure for the MBTA, but looking at Greenbush, it was done under a long litigious mitigation process through the courts, and there was a court order to do that. So my question is, bar going through that same process, which we wouldn't do because it's not there yet, and it was a little bit of a different situation there because there was some dispute on ownership of the tracks and parking and all that stuff. This is a little bit of a cleaner process. Step back a little bit before. There's a MOU between the two entities, the Craft Group and MBTA, that there is going to be one, which when we asked at the first meeting, nobody knew about if we were going to do it or not. So now that we know there is going to be one, there was an exhibit in that MOU, which no one's given it to us yet, other than we kind of got it from somebody else, but there's an exhibit 1 of where it's going to go. Is there some type of a map or mitigation or something that you can speak to that is definitive that the MBTA will do or commit to, and what is the process of doing that review? And for instance, that whole area, from what I'm understanding in the MOU, the private group, Craft Group, I forget the acronym, whatever the acronym, FRAL, will provide the land, and then the overnight storage will be constructed. Then it goes back to the MBTA for ownership, and there's agreements further on. That area is in what we call an S1 district. So any development that goes in there has to meet certain requirements for noise and vibration and lighting, and that's spelled out in the zoning through a special permit with the planning board. So that's what I'm used to seeing if a developer comes in. Now we have the MBTA with this group that we're not involved with. Can anyone tell me what the process is, or where the station is in Exhibit 1 on the land, or what the options are?
So I can't tell you the exact location because, to the best of my knowledge, that's very up in the air. But whenever MBTA constructs any layover, we typically have to do a full MEPA filing, which includes those studies: sound studies, environmental impact studies, air quality, noise, and the full gamut. Because we have a responsibility, number one, to do that. And we do that at any new facility, not even a layover, but typically any construction project that we have, that's part of our process. And we would intend to and expect to stick with that process. And we wouldn't treat this any different. Because, quite frankly, at the end of it, you're going to have my phone number. You're going to know who to ask the questions and follow up with, and
Okay, but
we want to make sure we do
assuming this is
things
gonna
right.
take a couple of years, I don't know if you'll be answering the phone, but we'll be dealing with the MBTA at some level.
Correct.
So if I look at, over the weekend, I looked at the draft EIR and the EIR that was prepared for the whole Patriots process, and that was noise study and traffic and stuff. But that's on a high level at the state regulatory with the EPA and all that stuff. From a local perspective, where is the process with respect to the planning board and the zoning board? It's probably unfair to the MBTA since you're not used to the rules, but where do you see this process from your group going?
Well, the rail line itself is exempt from zoning, so there's no zoning process for that itself. That's exempt under the federal requirements
But
for the zoning.
under the special permit, in the December 6, 1999 town meeting vote, where we changed it from the original 1970 thing to, originally in 1970, the agreement did not allow an MBTA station. December 6, 1999, with that, the town meeting vote, that became a new, it wiped out the 1970, and one of the things that established was the S1 zone. One of the things that was new to the S1 zone was a commuter rail station, but by special permit. Okay? And if you read this S1 special permit requirements, there is in section 9, and it has something to do with noise, vibrations, so there it is. Even you said that it was not required, but this train station under the S1 zone, the town of Foxborough, needs a special permit, and there are requirements that you might question whether a layover would be allowed under that requirement.
Well, even with a special permit, it means it would be allowed, just to still require that extra process. But my understanding is that the tracks themselves are actually exempt under federal requirements.
That's correct.
Yeah, what I'm referring to.
Even if, you could be referring to something as a station, but the station's already existing.
Okay, so I guess that, I'm just looking for some assurances, because if you are in fact exempt, and this pilot program is successful, and then you want to put a layover facility, things like the mitigation walls and the sound studies and things like that, we don't have any authority over the MBTA if it's exempt. And I'm not looking for specifics of how high the wall is going to be, but some assurances from the MBTA or the craft group.
I'd like to address
Yeah,
that.
that there's going to
Do
be
you have
some
any
discussion.
other technical questions maybe for Ryan that he can answer, and then maybe I'll go through the MOA and maybe answer some of those
No, that's
larger
fine.
questions?
Yeah.
Good evening, Board, and thank you for having us. First, I'd like to thank Ryan. Spent the day getting 1 million people out of Boston, so thank you for coming down to spend time with us today.
It's a quiet day.
Yeah.
No, it is a good day to be in New England.
That's right.
So I was asked to come and give the outline of the MOA. So first, it's an MOA. It's a memorandum of agreement. It's not a contract. It's really just a framework for a public-private partnership. No final deal has been struck yet. You all do have a copy of that, as Jim alluded to, but I will give you the highlights. It has 500 parking spots that would be made available for service. The revenue of those parking spots will go directly to the MBTA. Parking is expandable if the service is successful. Rest assured, we have ample existing parking. I know that question was raised previously, but with our 119 employee lot, we've created a lot of capacity, excess capacity, so we do have, in fact, capacity to give to the MBTA for this MOA. And I know the planning board, if they believed otherwise, they know where to find me as well. Engineering and design service, including noise, vibration, traffic studies, everything that Ryan alluded to. Part of the MOA is that is being privately funded, so that will be done by the Kraft Group. We are the ones that will be funding that. Land to the MBTA for future storage consideration. To your point, Jim, that location has not yet been determined. What you see in the exhibit is, because it's the framework of a deal, it was used as a placeholder. It's just that they want about 3.5 to 4 acres. This was a placeholder where there was 3.5 to 4 acres.
Oh, so there is no exhibit that shows a lot or an area?
There is an exhibit, and that exhibit is a placeholder within the MOA. You have the rights. We have the right to work with the MBTA to find alternative locations. We just wanted a place to be able to hold it, to put it into the MOA for that particular time and place. You know, obviously, we're going to try to keep it away from residents, try to keep it away from North Street as much as possible. That would be our intent. It's expected that trains are express to Reedville. They pick up the Fairmount line and then head to South Station. 3 peak period AM and 3 peak period PM trains with a few midday services as well. By the nature of the MOA, there is no increase in the average subsidy per rider to the MBTA. It will not cost the MBTA any more to operate this pilot. Private investment is backstopping their operating costs. It's an 11-month evaluation period. At the conclusion of that, town, MBTA, Kraft Group will get together, make that evaluation. And lastly, I guess, Jim, you asked a question, so I guess I'll specifically put it to you. I'm going to call it do the right thing. If the pilot is successful, we, the Kraft Group, I believe, will do the right thing. I might be sitting here today in front of you. I don't have all the answers. Ryan doesn't have all the answers, and we might not have them until the conclusion of the pilot program. But the bottom line is the buck is going to stop here. It's our property. We don't want to do something that's going to diminish our value. We don't want to do something that's going to diminish the value of our neighbors. We're committed to working with the town to get this right. I know, Jim, you know, January 26th, above the fold, Jim DeVellis, I trust in the Kraft Group. And so I guess as I sit here in front of the Board of Selectmen, Jim, all of Foxborough, I say, trust in us. We're going to do the right thing.
Okay, I appreciate that. Let me explain where that quote came from.
Okay.
When I sat with you, Dan Murphy, I got a good feeling of where it could go.
Yep.
Okay, and that there's a process. We looked at different options. During the meeting where the MBTA presented it, that quite specific question was asked, will there be a layover station? And the question was, we don't know at this point. Following that is when I found out there is an MOA that says there will be one. And then speaking to Ryan on the morning, he said there's absolutely no way we would do this without a layover station. So I've got the craft group, which we, the town, has had great experience with on the development and keeping the word. And then we've got the MBTA, which is saying one thing, and then we put a condition, taking the word that they don't know, but we're saying, all right, if you don't know, then the condition is it's not gonna be an MBTA station. Then really, the next week, we get something back saying, oh, of course there's gonna be one. So the credibility with the MBTA, as far as I'm concerned, is, and that's what I said in the paper, either they sent people that didn't know, or someone wasn't telling the truth. That's where that came from.
And that's where I'm going to ask you again. I think, we are going to be the ones funding and working with the MBTA and private consultants to do air studies, traffic studies, noise studies, vibration studies. We're going to know the results. We're going to share them with the town. And at the end of the day, if we need, instead of a 12-foot wall, we need a 14-foot wall, we're going to work with the town and the MBTA to
Okay.
see that happen.
So that's the engineering stuff, but the two components that, we got a letter from the advisory committee about the financial impact, which, who knows, it's kind of up in the air right now, but evaluation of that with increased fees, increased assessments and things like that, that's one thing. But the traffic to get into there from North Street or through Cross Street or coming from Route 1, do you envision a traffic study?
Absolutely.
Of how the people are going to get there, if they're going to be coming
That's
from?
actually part of the process. We will absolutely do a traffic study, and we're happy to share that with the town and look to get the town's input on that as well.
Okay, so if there is a level of service, C or B or A on North Street, and that triggers a change, then this station would address a traffic level of service change.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
I met with, I went to Greenbush twice. I went by myself one time, and then I went with Jim, and we met Mr. Ryan in the early morning. And we did walk around, and we walked around. We were at the station. There were 2 trains there. It was noisy. There was an odor. There was vibration. We went around to the other side into the neighborhood, and we actually walked. We parked the car and we walked up, and we were on the streets that were right behind the wall. And there was noise, and there was a smell. And my concern is that stuff like that should be mitigated. And obviously, it was mitigated. There was a reason for mitigation because the wall was built. And I also got a hold of the agreement between the MBTA and the town of Situate. And there was noise mitigation to the neighborhood to the tune of $755,000. $755,000 is a lot of money. That, to me, says that there's a good amount of noise.
Was that to build the wall?
No, for the whole thing. That was the wall plus the individual. It lists the individual addresses, and then it will say like $10,000, $15,000 in wall. So it's in the back. It's the final page of that agreement.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is that mitigation was brought about because of, I believe it was a lawsuit, but in any way, it was the MBTA and the town of Situate. The mitigation was done to alleviate the nuisance to the taxpayers, the townspeople of the town of Situate. This agreement is between FRAL, a private entity, and the MBTA, a public entity. I see in no way where the town of Foxborough has a seat at that table. And I really would be really concerned with the idea of if, and mitigation will be needed, because obviously it was needed in Situate, it was needed in Hingham. You need noise mitigation around these facilities when they're near a residential area. My concern is what guarantees does the town of Foxborough, specifically the residents of the North Street area, Hallowell Drive, Hartwell Street, Meadowview Road, that area, what guarantees do those people have that this new facility that will come in by established neighborhoods that have been there 30, 40 years, very nice neighborhoods. If you drive down those streets, they are very nice neighborhoods. How can you guarantee the people in those areas that they will not be negatively affected, even with mitigation, but basically, they will be negatively affected? Because let me tell you, we took a walk in that neighborhood behind that wall. I wouldn't buy there. It's not a pretty neighborhood. And so I've heard that a train station won't decrease property values. Well, maybe on the other side of town they don't increase property values. But let me tell you something. That neighborhood in Situate was not a pretty neighborhood. And that's one of my fears, that you have an existing neighborhood, that this facility will negatively impact it, even with the mitigation wall. Just the fact that the facility is there. And that is my number one concern, and that's why I'm really not in favor of this project, because of the layover facility. And the MBTA says we have to have a layover facility. So can you answer me the question, does the town of Foxborough have a seat at the table? Once we give if we give our blessing, and that's all, we were asked just to give our blessing, and I still don't understand how something like this, that could really negatively impact the town with a private-public partnership, making all these plans, and then all we have to do is say, oh, okay, do it. But, I mean, I don't remember ever getting phone calls saying, please, please put a train station so I can get into Boston. We have a train station in Walpole, Sharon, Mansfield, Norfolk. I used to take the train into Mansfield, from Mansfield into Boston. And you know, the train from Mansfield to Boston stops at Back Bay and South Station. This train, I don't know if people realize it, it only stops at South Station. It doesn't stop at Back Bay. And I know the train from Mansfield, when I used to take it, half the train emptied out at Back Bay Station. So, I mean, really, those are my concerns. But I really would like, do we have a seat at the table?
From my perspective, I will say that, and again, I will ask that those at the table before me, you will be given a seat at the table from the craft group perspective.
And Mr. Krantz, I have no doubt your word, but you know what? I would like to see that in writing. And I mentioned that to Ryan. I want everything in writing. Because what someone says at one table, 2 years later, they're no longer around. And then the people who are in that position go, I have no idea what you're talking about. I never said that.
I have no issue in doing that.
I'd like to see it before we take a vote, to see exactly what is being said. I really do.
I would ask, I don't think that that's necessary, and I would ask that the board, well, I'll leave it up to the board. I think we've worked well with everyone at this table, and I think there needs to be a level of trust, or I would ask that there's a level of trust that we can come to an agreement that, yes, in fact, that will occur.
Mr. Chairman, I will work with Mr. Krantz directly to make sure that that happens, and you have that, that he's indicated tonight he would do that. I will make sure that that happens. I would just want to state that my recommendation to the board is that you do proceed with this vote tonight, and that you approve this project. The reason I say that is because I think we've had a lot of input into this. I've stated from the very beginning, when I first came here, almost 3 years ago, that I thought that the train was a good thing for this community. I thought that it was for a couple of reasons. One is the fact that it does provide better service to the community. One of the few towns in this region that doesn't have the train station, It's interesting to me that people who have train service that are surround us are complaining about it, but yet they have it in their community and we don't. So the second, which it is an economic development driver, there's no question about it, and I think that in of itself is a very good reason to help the town in its economic development proposals, to try and get more development on that side of town, whereas actually development is actually the most desirable place to put it for this time, with the least impact to the most area of the town. Third is the fact that that their service to the region is also an important consideration, when the fact, if you take a look at parking situations in Mansfield and Sharon, it does make it more difficult for our own residents to try and get to those stations, because they can't park in those stations, they have to get there very early in the morning in order to try and get a place to park. So I think it's a benefit to our community on two ways. One, local service. Two is the fact that it's just a parking benefit, and it takes more cars off the road in that regard going to Boston. I stated from the beginning, from when I first came here, I thought it was a benefit. I came from a community that had four train stations in it. And I can tell you that there was a huge economic benefit for having that. I'm not wavering from that position. I've never wavered from that position. I think it's a benefit to you, and I would strongly recommend that you approve it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks, Bill.
just say one more thing. You know, this process has been going on for, meeting here for a while.
4 or 5 minutes.
We were asked when it first, in the most recent iteration of it, we were told, you had gone in, we were told, and you just asked for our blessing. And then we said, wait a minute. I would like to know why I had to go and find that 2010 study. I had to go and find that MBTA Situate agreement. So I had something to look at. We were given no information. All we were given was, we'd like to put a train station there. And you wonder why I'm asking for things in writing. You wonder why I have a little bit of trepidation. I've heard, you said there was no noise. I went down there. I personally, on the other side of the wall, heard the noise at that station.
I can only report to you what I saw and I witnessed. I went there on a Saturday morning, and there was one train that was parked in the station, and it was not multiple trains, which was what you saw. So obviously it was a different situation. The agreement between the MBTA and the Kraft Group is their agreement. It's not our agreement. And so as a such, in that regard, it was something that they had between them. As far as the Situate agreement, I wasn't aware there was a Situate agreement, quite honestly. If I had
I
been
sent
asked,
it to you.
You did. Obviously, you sent it to me, but you didn't ask me for it. You sent it to me. I
Right.
wasn't aware of it, though, prior to that.
Right.
So I think if you had asked me to get it, I would have gotten it for you without
Well, I
any
didn't
issue at
know
all.
there was one.
No, you didn't either. So that's
I mean,
my
I
honest
had
answer.
to, you know, the internet is a wonderful thing.
It is.
You go on and find this information. The 2010 study
Mhm.
was available. I would like to know why I had to go and get the 2010 study, and I paid $40 to have it printed up myself, for me.
2010 study was a public document as far as I knew, and it was before my time.
Right.
Right.
So
So I think the 2010 study is basically null and void at this point. It was a different animal, it was a different administration, it was DMUs, it was an entirely different direction than what I understand this program going into. This is our third or fourth meeting. We're concerned about North Street and Howell, and we're all concerned about that. But the support, the overwhelming support for this, there's been very little pushback from the people on North Street and Howell. And as far as getting that information, well, part of that's our job, to do our research and get that information and try and get as much information so we can inform the public and make an informed decision.
agree with that.
And I don't, Ginny, I don't necessarily disagree with you. But based on the fact that there's been such overwhelming support for this, I don't see how we can go in any other direction. As long as, you know, we have the Kraft Group's assurances that they'll work with us as far as the layover location's concerned and mitigation. They're gonna do traffic mitigation, they're gonna do sound studies. The MBTA has to comply with the Railroad Noise Emission Compliance Regulations, which is Title 49, put out by the Federal Railroad Administration. Those are federal guidelines. I mean, I think we have adequate protection. I mean, the Kraft Group has a big stake in this town, and they come to us for a lot of things. And if Mr. Krantz is saying that he's gonna stand by it, then we can put it in writing, but that's good enough for me. So,
Well, the homeowners in the area also have a big stake in this town.
where are they?
I'd like to see us move the question. Move to approve?
Just one further comment, if you could, and it's, Thank you for coming, Dan, I appreciate that. Probably the closest, at least on this board, closest to that area. My biggest issue was not being at a seat at a table with the MBTA. Been there, done that, it hasn't been a good experience. And it doesn't necessarily have to be this table. We have a very dedicated planning board, a very good planner. That type of special permit review of all that stuff, that's my concern, is if there's a process where we can see the plans, look at the mitigation, study it, involve the neighbors, there's a lot to learn in the next 11 months. Maybe this thing falls flat on its face, I don't know, but I do agree that there is tremendous support in the town. From this afternoon, I spoke to our state rep, Jay Barrows, who's very much behind it, and I'm the closest one. I do think there's a benefit, not just to the craft group in Patriots Place, but to the commuters, the reverse commute and all that stuff. I just want some assurances. Again, I'm not going to get it from the MBTA tonight, but on your word, if the craft group is willing to bring the town through the process with them before it's finalized, that's what I'm looking for.
Yes, you do.
If I could add too, I don't think I ever envisioned a table without the MBTA and the town and the craft group at the same table. I kind of always, since the last time we met, envisioned just that partnership.
And it was stated in the response letter from the MBTA and
From the
Mass
secretary,
DOT
actually, yeah.
that they would be,
Or from the Ashley
it would
Goulet.
be a collaborative effort,
Right, she did say that.
so.
But I just want to remind you, the first letter that we sent, it was conditional. There were 4 or 5 conditions. The number 1 condition was that there be no layover.
Mhm.
And the letter, the support that was given by the board, 4-1, but it was given by the board, that was one of the conditions. And so if there is going to be a layover, in my mind, that negates the support.
Negates
think
the
that's
first
what-
vote.
I think that's what we're doing
Revoted.
tonight.
That's what we're doing tonight. Can I have a motion to
Yes.
continue support of the pilot program?
Move to continue the support of the pilot program, the commuter rail pilot program.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any further discussion?
I just think you need to strike the first one and replace it with the town will be involved, because we can't continue to support it if that letter's still on file, correct?
If I have a separate,
Hmm?
if you have something from, I'm sorry.
What if we rescinded,
You
what
can-
if we rescinded the original support
Mhm.
and then voted on support based on the Mass DOT response with the understanding that per that letter, the town will be part of the process?
We'll work directly with
Special
the
permit
MBTA and
process,
right.
work with the MBTA and the craft group on the
Yeah.
process,
Yeah.
review
And the
process.
reason saying, because if we just continue to support it, that letter
Right,
is still on
right.
file.
What was the date of that original vote on November
I
6th?
believe it was,
29th.
right, yeah, November 29th, right. Thank you.
So how do we word that? Move to
Rescind.
rescind the support of 11/29 board meeting?
And replace it
And-
with,
Replace it.
Oh, so a combination, and replace it with today's support of the commuter rail program with
With the condition.
with the condition
conditions
that was stated to us by their response.
By the
that-
state and that the town and the MBTA and the craft group will work together to address any concerns that come out of the pilot program.
Once again, Caitlin, did you get that?
I'll work with you tomorrow on it. I'll clear it up.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
All right, thank
Wait a
you.
minute.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
I apologize. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Time.
You think that motion can get made?
Budget discussion. Ms. Thompson is here for the budget discussion.
Yeah. Okay, a little bit after 8:05, we'll do the 8:05 budget discussion.
Mr. Scollins is going to join us for this. Please. You mind doing that outside, if you don't mind? Step outside to do that. Kara?
Kara?
Would you mind stepping outside and doing that? Okay, okay. Okay, Randy, come on up.
Wants to hear about budget, huh?
Thought that's what the Fox News guy was here for.
Sure you don't want to stay?
Thank you. Okay. Well, this is just the next phase in the budget process. It's not the final step in the budget process, it's the next step in the process. And that I have completed my reviews, the initial reviews with the AdCom, as well as myself with the department heads in reviewing the budgets. I have made recommendations for reductions in the budgets, which amount to about $470,000. Just shy of $500,000. At this point in time, I think there was one additional amendment that was done this morning,
Right.
which would reduce it to, actually, we're below the levy maximum amount at this point, and we're below that by about $10,000. So right now, we are balanced in terms of the recommendations. The question then becomes before the board, based on the conversation that you'd had in the past, is where do we go from here? In the sense that if there is a desire of this board to go further than that, would mean I would have to go back further and evaluate those budgets with our departments collectively to determine if further cuts are required. At this point in time, if we were to go to an additional $500,000 to, in other words, reduce the levy amount from 2.5 to 1.25% increase in the levy capacity, that would mean about a $500,000 reduction in the budget process at this point in time. Based upon how this works, is that, and we've confirmed this on our own level to see how much of an impact this would be about $135,000 more to the town, and another $165,000 to the town, and another $335,000 to the schools. So I won't get into the discussion points, because I really want to hear where the board stands at this point, or where your concerns are, or if you have any, if you have any questions of Randy or I. Randy has all the details of the budget, and he can go through those for you if you'd like. But I just certainly, at this point, stand ready to respond.
Randy, a $500,000 reduction in generated taxes means what to the average taxpayer?
It means, I'm going to split the taxpayers into two groups, residential and business. So for the residential taxpayer, and I don't know if you got these in your board docs later today. If not, I actually have the handouts. For the average residential taxpayer, it means just under $54. And for the average commercial taxpayer, it means just under $145. Because depending upon the value of your property, your mileage will vary.
And that would just be for this fiscal year?
Right, that would be for any, for this fiscal year, next fiscal year, the following fiscal year, depending upon how long, the board wanted to consider doing that, taxing at below the levy limit at 1.25%.
So you did a 3-year look ahead?
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like we're using free cash to pay operating expenses
Correct.
on a going forward basis.
And historical, I mean, that's the town's model.
Right. What impact does that do to our stabilization, our capital stabilization, our debt stabilization?
Sure. Sorry for the complication, but as far as our stabilization accounts, those would remain, intact, sacrosanct, because those are voted amounts, and our policy on the core stabilization, which is really a disaster fund, is to keep that at 5% of the general fund operating budget, which we've done that. Shouldn't have to revisit that for at least a couple of years. It doesn't affect capital stabilization because unfortunately we really haven't generated enough excess to put into that. We just have the balance that we put into that back in 2006, I believe, about $500,000. But where it would have an impact is in what I would refer to as our operating reserves. So that's in essence what most people think of as free cash. Free cash is just an uncommitted balance in the general fund, or it's otherwise referred to as undesignated fund balance. So it would definitely have an impact on that. And as I modeled it out for 3 years based on the latest update to the multi-year forecast here, it would take our free cash balance down at the end of the fiscal 2020 cycle down to around $300,000. If you did this for each of the next 3 years, what you're contemplating. And in addition to that, it would bring us down to the lowest part of the target range we have in the financial policies for the undesignated fund balance that all the policy boards have agreed to maintain. It would bring us down to the lowest end of the range, if not slightly below it. So it certainly put us a little bit at risk in terms of how we're perceived.
On a historical basis, has this been done before in this community?
Reducing below the levy limit?
Yeah.
I think maybe about 20 years ago, I think there was a vote to, I think, reduce the tax levy by a couple $100,000, something like that.
Okay.
But of course, nobody was thinking about long-term contingent liabilities like unfunded pension and OPEB liability and building reserves, that sort of a thing. So I think the financial world has changed, at least in terms of how you best practice should manage your local government.
Okay. Anyone else?
Any other questions for Randy or?
I have some more, but.
Yeah, I have some free cash questions here. I mean, I'm looking at one of the documents that the levy limit discussion. And the bottom line of the top section, total free cash certified. So for FY17, it's $6.7 million.
Right.
So that's certified free cash that we are using or not using, or is that?
No, it's just, it's available. If you go further down the column, you'll see both actions that have already been taken as well as recommendations for the FY18 budget. So
Down
the
that
same
FY17 column?
Yeah, the same column. Right, so there's our typical commitment to the operating and capital budgets.
So we're going to use 2.7.
Right, just under 2.8.
Next year's operating, next year's capital.
Right.
And then.
And then the other three items had been voted, increase of stabilization, 280,000. We have a contingency for labor contracts for unfunded or unsettled for this year. And then 50,000 was put towards the architectural and engineering work related to the downtown sewer.
So at the end of FY17, we'll have $3.2 million roughly.
Correct.
left?
And 70,000 of that is actually meals tax money.
All right, so we'll end up with 3.5. Is that typical spending? per
On,
year?
on the spending side, yes.
Okay. So we'll go from, at the end of this year, 3.5, and at the end of FY 2020, we'll draw this down to $314,000.
Just based on what's being contemplated here. The plan itself is geared towards, keeping us around the $2 million mark.
So the plan that's being contemplated is the 1.25% for the next 3 years?
Yes.
No, well, without the 1.25%, it would leave us.
Right, the
in a
one that's
good position.
being discussed here is the one to not tax to the levy limit.
Only increase to 1.25%.
1.25,
Right.
and that's what would drive the
So
free
that
cash
would-
position
That would
down.
drive it down to 314,000 by 2020, FY 2020.
If we do the 1.25 every
Right.
year.
Right.
Is it every year, Randy, or is it?
Well, that's what I was asked to model out here, is what does it look like for the next 3 years?
Okay.
But not doing that, puts us back at, historical levels, about 2 million, which is in essence, if you think about that, that's your operating reserve.
What's the highest we've ever been in free cash, like this FY 17? Probably 6.7?
Yep, that's it, 6.77.
And, I mean, if we stayed the course, I mean, would we always be typically around the 6.7, or each year it would go up and up and up, theoretically, if more events? and more-
No, it is something that fluctuates. If you look across the history here, I'm not anticipating it to be at that level at any time in the near term over the next 3 years. I anticipate it drawing down. We've in essence had two peaks over the last dozen years, and then when we had the last peak in 2008, that was very timely for the meltdown in the economy, and the town was able to sustain services by prudently using the reserves, to not have to cut services. So now we've got back to that point again, but there's, in this horizon here, there's nothing on the horizon within this time frame through the end of fiscal 2020 that's going to create that sort of lift.
What was the big jump after FY 14 in the free cash? Because it was fairly consistent for the prior 3 or 4 years, and then it went from 1.8 up to 3.2 to almost 3.
So, I'm sorry, which years are you looking at, Chris?
FY 14 was 1.7, we'll call it 1.8 million that we, actually, no, I'm sorry. Unused free cash from prior year, okay.
So we didn't use as much in a couple previous years, is that the answer for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. I was looking at it backwards, I apologize. So the years that we didn't use as much free cash, that was years with more revenue coming in.
More recurring revenue. So the free cash is really the balancer in the whole budget equation. You've got recurring revenues from taxes, from state aid, and from your core local receipts.
Yeah.
And I would even put ambulance receipts into that category at this point. So free cash is the balancer to balance the budget, and I've always looked at it in terms of the utilization of free cash for the operating budget as, if we're down closer to $1 million in utilization for the operating budget, then we're in relatively good shape, and meaning that we could weather the next economic downturn. If we're pushing up towards $2 million in utilization of free cash, I would say exactly the opposite. We're running into some hard financial times. If you go back to the prior 10 years, and the only reason I gave you the prior 10 years is 2000, 2010, because there was actually something pretty instructive that happened here from fiscal 2002 through fiscal 2005. So the economy hiccuped at that point in time. State cut state aid pretty dramatically. So what we did is utilize our free cash the way it was designed to be used in an economic downturn, which was to put all of our free cash utilization, unfortunately it was all of the free cash utilization in those years, but put it all up into the operating budget and not in the capital budget, and in essence, it starved out the capital budget for a good 4 years, and then there was some catch-up. So that's the flexibility that you're buying, with the free cash, is to be able to weather it like that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're in a much more difficult situation.
Okay, thanks.
Through the chair, because I'm the one that brought up this 1.25 back in November. I got a handout. Could I just walk you guys through a couple of my thoughts? Because I did meet with Randy and Bill last week. And I spent a lot of time just trying to put it in a perspective that is a little different from so the budget documents that we got sent to us, basically our 2018 budget is 73.3 million. Okay, that's broken down at about 20% of it is municipal, 46 or say 50% is education, 20% is fixed costs, and then we have the water sewer enterprises around 10%. So that's been pretty much steady. When this got brought up, I want to make a point of saying that I want to give credit to all the department heads, to the advisory committee, to Randy, to Bill and Mary. Everyone submitted their budgets, and if you go to the advisory committee, which is really the watchdog committee made up of residents, it was vetted, and as Bill said, things were cut, and it came out to the budget that pretty much was a balance with the 2.5%. We do have very good department heads. We have good leadership, and that goes with the schools too. So I said early on, I wasn't interested in going through a line by line and having a subcommittee to look at the budgets. I think a lot of us have been doing enough that we do run a pretty lean town, and it shows when you go through the budget. The marching orders that we've had, as far as I can remember, is we do not want to decrease our services. So somehow Foxborough votes that we want level service. And so we start with that level service. The flip side is I don't think we look at sometimes the numbers, what it means to make level service. We just shoot for level service. And I'm talking to the board here because at the end of the day, we're the policymakers. With all due respect to Randy as a finance director and a town manager and assistant town manager and a school committee and a superintendent, very seldom do you see that group of people saying, we're good. We can make cuts. It has to come from this table. So that's why you hear school committees say, we're good with the budget, because their objective is to get the best schools. So the more money you send, they're going to use it. And no reflection on a bad school committee, but that's their goal. So at the end of the day, it comes back to this board. Now, just looking back at the last 5 years that was in our packet, so go back 5 years, back to 2012, look ahead 3 years to 2020, the effect of compounding the 2.5% increase that we've seen, we went from a $55 million budget to a $76 million budget. So that's 38%, over $21 million on a level service, with the understanding that we've had pretty much a level population and we've had business growth. So the same amount of people are paying the taxes, but we've gone up 38% in that time period. So to fund our 2018 budget with no cuts, we would need a 2.5% increase, which is a $1 million increase from the residential and business tax base. And that's just a piece of the 4.3% increase, so the $3 million that we're going from 2017 to 2018. So I started off with a 1.25%. of a reduction in the increase in property tax, which means a $500,000 number to balance the budget. And if you take, I know you broke it down between the residential and the business, but I calculated it to about a 73% average savings. So
$73.
$73, okay? Which, depending on who you ask, is a lot of money, and to some it might not be a lot, but 73, I think, is a decent amount of money to save on a average tax bill. So we have two options. Option A is continue as we have been doing, tax to the max, and move on. Or what I'm calling option B, which I want to ask for your consideration tonight, is to tax at the 1.25%, which is the $500,000. So where do we get that $500,000? I'm proposing to take it out of the payment in lieu of taxes, the pilot that we get from the stadium, and then moves on to the bigger pool of certified free cash. Now, the chart, some of you had asked about, different years. So the chart in the middle of page 2 shows a breakdown of between 2014 and 2018. So, for instance, in 2014, our budget estimated about $1.4 million. Okay, that's going to come in from the stadium. So in 2014, we estimated 1.4. We got 2.6, which is a 191% increase, 191% of what we budgeted. You go to the next year, we got $1.1 million more. You go to 2016, we got 2.5 million, just short of 2.5 million, which is a 274% increase over what we estimated. If you look at 2017 to date, the numbers that I've asked for and estimated were about $1.6 million now, which is $200,000 over the estimate, and that doesn't include any of the football games. Okay, so we're on track this year to do very well. So we could take the $500,000, it's $532,000, which is only 20% of that extra unbudgeted money that we didn't anticipate. Okay, so I could see if it was a peak or something, but we've been on, a steady, long curve of the money that we're taking in from the pilot program at the stadium. And I do understand that free cash is a buffer and it fluctuates, but right now it's the highest it's ever been in 10 years. And we have 6.7 million, as Randy had said, which compares to the 3.6 in 2007. So if you look at the free cash balance, I put together a chart. So you start in 2017 at the top, we're at 6.7. Back in 2007, we were down at 3.6. So looking back, when the town approved the stadium and the expansion that's come afterwards, it was done with an understanding that this will decrease our tax burden. And in simplest terms, I think this is a year to do it. We don't need to commit to it every year. It gives us the ability to look at it now, make that decision. But I think more importantly, I think we need to set a policy moving forward that when we get this payment in lieu of taxes, rather than just going to free cash, it's in the budget and it's recognized as a number, not just going into free cash and taking it a little bit by little bit, because it is a very substantial number. We're seeing people ask for $1 million line items at the CIP right now, which is approved by a handful of people, not all residents, on a Saturday morning. It's getting to the point where there's money there that I think would be broken down a little bit more consistently. So I think this gives us the time to do it. So in summary, the $500,000 that we're talking about is 0.7% of the entire budget. So if we can, when I brought this up before, we talked about having study committees and looking at how we're going to figure out to do this in next year. If we can go from 3.5% to 4.9% to 5% without study committees to bring the budget up, I certainly think we can go 0.7% of 1%, 0.75% without having a major hiccup in our process. And, when it gets brought up and we hear that there's going to be layoffs and study committees and we're going to lose this and that, I got a question, if this board can look at taking a little bit of a sticking the neck out and say, I don't think we need to do that. We're not gonna lose the level of service. We're not gonna have major cuts with 500,000 on a $73 million budget. So, I brought this back up on the first day in November, the very first time that we had to talk about this with the school committee. And what we got back was, we made cuts, but we're back at where we were at 2.5%. We balanced the budget. And we don't see well, if we brought it down, what would the cuts be? All right, so what this does, what my suggestion does, of that 20% of the unbudgeted pilot, which is a 1.25%, it does not reduce any requested department budgets, and we can remain at the level of service that we're at. We don't jeopardize any future programs or cut the programs that are in the budget right now. It does not take a huge step for people to panic about, and it doesn't require any further work going back to the department heads. Those are the things that are what it doesn't do. What it does do, it offers us a chance to recognize that Foxborough is budgeted and programmed very well. We are at a lean budget, and people are doing their jobs. And it's not a bad thing to say once in a while. For the average taxpayer, and it gives them a break in the light of an upcycle in the economy, and there is a bright future forecasted. It's in the documents, it's listed, it's in all the projections, that we're not falling off a cliff, that we can afford to do this right now. It gives some credibility to the Patriots, to the fact that the Patriots play, since they've come to fruition. We can now qualify and quantify some type of a savings because of that. It leaves $6.2 million in the 2017 free cash, which is very healthy moving forward, and it's still higher than any other year in the documents that we've received, going back to the chart I showed you. That 500,000 provides some type of a ceiling on the spending limit, which is good. And it sets a little reverse compound tax so that little bit of savings gets compounded year after year, even though we're not taking it off year after year as a one-time thing. And this sets up the topic that we can revisit in the future, that I think it's a long time that we should be doing that, to look at the pilot and where that money's going. So what I'm asking the board as policymakers is, it's not a one-time thing where we're holding our breath. We're very secure right now. I think we can afford to do it. It gives some confidence to the taxpayers. And I think in the bigger picture, I think that people appreciate that a little bit. People will come to the table and you'll see businesses and residents appreciate it. And I think we're going to get more growth on the path that we're going right now. So I just urge you just to consider it and not go to the panic of we need more studies and bring it down for another year. I think we can do it now without sending them back to all the department heads to change one thing, and then we move on. So I'm calling this Plan B if you guys want to consider that, and I appreciate it.
So fundamentally, I don't disagree with you. But I'm just wondering if there's a longer-term vision we should be taking, rather than just giving $53 or $73 back to the residents. Should we be looking further down the road where we can really make an impact if we continue on the path that we're on, even though times are good, to build up, hopefully get that future growth, broaden the tax base, get the tax split down to, 70% residential, 30% commercial, and then we can actually reduce our tax rate on a going forward basis.
Oh, I agree. I think we can do both of this, though. I think we can do both. I think we should be doing both.
Well, that's the discussion I thought we were gonna focus on, the long term, the bigger picture, and set our policy towards that end. I'm just a little concerned, and there's no doubt that we can do this.
I almost think this just gives us the time now to start actively really looking at that future down the road.
I brought this up before, and years ago, we were falling off a cliff. We worked hard to change all the insurance. We brought things together. We've had that discussion in the past, and it's never been the right time because we don't know what was happening. We went through a pretty difficult time with a different town manager. I think it's stable right now. If you look at the documents of what should be in free cash year after year and what's be brought, we're above that. So I think we can do this without a lot of pain and focus on the things that you're talking about. We talked about the senior programs and bringing in different development. I went to the downtown business meeting the other day that Paige put together, and there's some excitement about doing new things.
Right.
Route 1's doing things, hotels are being built, restaurants are being built. If we keep putting it off for a better time, it's not going to come. I think this is the best time to do it.
Yeah, I don't think our intent is to put it off. I think our intent is to put a policy in place with an end date in sight and a target. Okay? Versus just saying, all right, let's take $500,000 off the table. Taxpayers are gonna get, 55, 70, whatever the number is. They're gonna get a tax break this year. We'll revisit it next year. But what's the analysis if we continue on our path, 2018, 2019, 2020, or if it's 2019, what is the projection for 2020 gonna be, or 2021, when we have that development? What's that target? That's what I think we should be focusing on. And listen, obviously, you put a ton of work into this.
Yeah, but let me to answer that, we've had those discussions. Now we're looking to 2020. We were on it before when we were 2013, looking to 2016. It just keeps going up. And I'm not disputing what you're saying. There's always more study that you can do. But at what point, when you look at a projection, and we're almost 300% more that we're getting, do you say, hey, guys, this is a good time to recognize that we're in good shape to do this? That's...
Yep, no, I get it. My concern is if this is almost like taking a step back, a one-year step back, does that push that end zone further out in a year or 2 years down the road?
I guess what's concerning to me about the approach, and I do appreciate all the effort that went into this, is that you're thinking about stadium payments in a nutshell. Stadium payments, payment in lieu of taxes, are part of local receipts. There's 60 items in there that fluctuate up and down every year. Stadium payments is one of those items. And stadium payments is the primary driver of what replenishes our free cash every year. So by taking an extra $500,000 from that assumed revenue and putting it into the budget, in essence what you're doing is you're still taking $500,000 out of free cash because that's not now coming in to free cash to replenish, and it basically accomplishes the same thing that we talked about earlier. So that's a concern that it puts us in the same place.
But the question is, if I might, because Jim brings up some really good points, in that if we weren't expecting that money, and we're getting far beyond even the wildest of expectations this year, why can't we take back $500,000 of that? Because, and the reason I'm saying that is, we keep reading in the paper, we're making above and beyond, and we got more, and the individual townspeople are saying, well, when are we gonna see some of all that excess coming back to us? I hear that every day in my little office around the corner. And I think Jim's really got a great idea of giving back to the town all that we hear, the good things that are happening. And this is money coming back that's above and beyond our projection, unless I'm reading it wrong.
Yeah, I think there's an oversimplification here. What's put forward on page 2 in this chart, it's under the column titled Estimated, that's not accurate. We estimate the full revenue stream that we're expecting from payment in lieu of taxes. So this year it's approximately $3 million, and that's what's in our forecast. is $3 million. The
In
difference
2016?
Pardon?
In 2016?
In fiscal 17, the year we're in right
17.
now.
Okay.
The difference is what we commit to the budget process. So what's in this estimated column is what's committed to the process, because as you recall, we don't commit 100% of the town's recurring revenue stream to the budget. We under budget local receipts. We try to target that at $1.5 million below, and turn back from general fund budgets incremental to that to get us to $2 million. So I think it's misleading to look at this and say that everything is over and above. I think what was over and above was maybe 800,000, from last year. But we recalibrate the estimate going forward based on the rolling average that we see, and we are projecting in the forecast that showing that if something like this were to happen, that it would still drop us down to a very, very low free cash number in 2020. Another thing to understand about 2020 is we've already factored in 25% of the expected Phase 1 development on the west side of Route 1 into new growth in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So that's in there. And, we've been doing that for the last 3 or 4 years because we've been waiting and waiting and waiting and hoping that they would come, and we keep pushing it out until to the last year. And, hopefully this time it actually might happen. But to Dave's point, when that happens, I firmly believe that in 2022, that this would be a very credible discussion, not for a one-hit wonder we can take a chance, but to do it permanently if everything happens the way that we would anticipate the development to happen on Route 1. I think doing it right now really compromise our financial position. On Patriot Place, just to be clear, we were told there was going to be a certain amount of valuation associated with that. Unfortunately, we got valued and required by the state to use the new value reality that had resulted from the crash in the market. And so we did not get full value. We took a significant haircut on the expected valuation on that. And then in addition to that, the one-time monies that we received, the mitigation, the permit fees, that's what kept the ship afloat for those other years, not expanding services, except I think we ultimately added, 4 firefighters. But that, so that was a very, interesting time that scenario helped us out with. But as far as easing the tax burden, it has done that. This community is still in that rarefied air that 74% of all the other communities in the state are not in, and that is no general overrides. I would say without this money, you would definitely have general overrides.
So to that
Or
point,
cuts, one or the other.
to that point, last year, we funded a substantial part of the town hall with money that was in the budget.
By design, 5 years of planning to pull that off.
Correct. So most towns, when you say that, they do overrides, if they wanted a town hall, make the presentation, or any capital improvement to that size, you bring it to the tax voters,
We did. We did bring it to the
yeah.
voters.
But here it's already in the budget. So in a way, you worked hard over the 5 years. You're taking a little bit and putting it in there and then spending it.
By design, full
By design.
disclosure.
Absolutely.
We said we're putting downward pressure on spending by $500,000
Understood,
for
but
the
it's
next few years in order to
it's
pay for that service.
but it's the same thing, Randy. If you're taxing them a little bit over 5 years, or taxing them at the end of the vote and then with a bond over the next 5 years, it's the same thing. So when we keep saying we don't do overrides like that, but we've done it. We just don't call it an override.
That is a total distortion, Selectman DeVillis. Total distortion.
I'm not trying to be offensive, Randy, but
I know you're not being
we paid
offensive,
for
but
a
I'm just saying
town
that's a
hall
total distortion.
without an
I'm not going to sit
override
here and
vote.
listen to it.
All right. Well, we completely disagree. We've gone back and forth.
We do.
That's
We completely
fine.
disagree.
That's fine. But what I'm
Agree to
asking the
disagree.
board is, with all due respect to Randy, is to consider, maybe it's a one thing, but it's a hell of a big step in the right direction, where we can say, if we're going to estimate 1.4 million and we're getting 3.8 million, and last year we estimated 1.4 and we got
Didn't estimate
2.5.
that. We estimated more than that.
Marie, I'm
so-
just
so-
taking it off your sheets that you've presented.
No, but you're saying we estimated full value. We did not estimate it, that's the number that we put in the budget to generate free cash, a practice we've been talking about for as long as I've been here.
Let me, can I just say a couple things here? Because first of all, let me just say, I think it's a great discussion to have, okay? I am not, in any way, I'm not gonna be combative or just, and agree to disagree on, we can agree to disagree on a couple points. It's the approach that I worry about. The approach that I have been preaching since I got here is build your base, build your base, build your base. We're at the point where we're building the base. We're supporting our services, we're doing things that other people don't do, in support of both your positions on that. Because of the fact that we've done the right things, we're utilizing the additional money that's coming in from the state, coming in from the stadium. Some would argue that we're actually using it to help support the additional construction that we're doing here, the town hall project, et cetera. We're doing that because so folks don't have to pay that extra on that point. My point to you is this. I think it's smart for us to approach these from a well-thought-out position and don't do it as a one-time hit. And to also, in 5 years from now, it may even be less, depending upon when all the development occurs. I've done this. I'm speaking from a position of strength when I say this to you. I've done this in my previous position. You build your economy to the pace where your value gets to a certain level in terms of overall community value, and then you don't have to tax to the max every single year. And I say that because there's only 12.5% of the communities in the entire state that can do that. We are on a schedule right now to be one of those communities. I'm not saying, I don't know what's been said in the past. I can't speak to that. I can tell you, based upon what I know today and the direction that we're trying to set, we will be in that position. Now, if the board agrees wants to go in a different direction on that, my only suggestion, I said this to Jim earlier at the meeting we had. One thing I used to do in my previous communities is hold what is known as a financial summit meeting. And the reason why we did that was because we wanted to make sure that all the groups were sitting around the table doing this and making an informed decision at one point. So that way, everybody's part of the solution. School committee, finance committee, board of selectmen, all the major policy boards would be involved. We'd go over everything that was part of our budget process as it is. And by the way, we have a very good budget process. It's probably one of the best ones I've seen. But having said that, can we make changes? Yeah, I think we can. But that doesn't mean, I'd rather have you do that in the forum where everybody agrees on how we're going to approach it. And then we set the process in motion. And where we're not in a position where, like, if we do it for 1 year, that's fine. But why don't we just say we're going to do it in an approach where we all can agree on how we're going to do it over a period of time, and then lock in that savings over a permanent basis. I want to see you do it on a permanent basis, not a one-time hit, because I think that's the service we're performing for the residents and the taxpayers and the commercial base of the community. I said this today, and I said it in a joking way, but it's really true. We have a great formula. Why are we going to change it? We have a great recipe. It's working. Why change it right now? There's no compelling reason that I know of to change it, other than the fact, and I know that there are people in the community who struggle with this, and they're seniors, and I understand that.
Bill,
And
they're
there
not
are others.
seniors.
Well, there are others too.
Everybody, the blue collars
Yeah.
are not seniors. I'm struggling with it. You know, it gets a little,
Yeah.
you know, when I hear, you know, you're defending something, I didn't mean to be
Yeah.
antagonistic.
I didn't take it that way. I
But when
just
I
wanted to
keep
take the
hearing
quality information.
that we're great because we don't do an override. In my opinion, we paid for a big part of town hall with a little bit over time versus raising it and doing it all at once. It's the same thing, whether you do it at the beginning over 5 years or you do it at the end. It's still coming from tax money. People are still
There are so many other
taxed.
needs, Jim, around the
Yeah,
town for
that's
service
right.
levels. That money would have been gone in a heartbeat for other
Yeah.
needs that were competing out there. We did the town a service here by putting downward pressure on spending, so we didn't have to raise taxes for that building.
Right, so, and let me just say to that point, we are saying, let's trim the money, but if we truly identified all the needs, and I can tell you that all the needs are not being met right now. I think that's why I want to have a collective discussion about the approach we're going to use, as opposed to just saying, we're going to trim it right now, and then we'll wait till next year to see what happens. You're not addressing all your needs. That's the bottom line. You're just not.
Me personally, I haven't heard people screaming that they're not getting services.
Well, it's because, we go through the process. We use a very conservative budget process where we don't fill the needs that we
Of
have.
the residents?
No, the needs of the services that we're trying to provide. There
So
are things-
maybe that's a disconnect from where I'm sitting.
Yeah.
I don't hear people saying, I want more service. What I hear people saying is, enough. Where is the break? That's what, the road, we've got OPEB funded, like we've never had it before funded.
Yep.
We've got the roads being fixed that we've never, that was a meals tax that came in that should have alleviated the budget a little bit, because that's unprecedented money that we're having.
So
Okay?
those are all good. Those are all good things.
Exactly.
This is a good story to tell.
It's
It really
a good
is.
story, but at the same time, all that money's coming into another pot, but the other pot is still going up. $21 million over a very short period of time.
We
on
cut
a
$40 million
2.5%.
out of the OPEB liability by doing what we did. $40 million that we
Out
saved
of a
future
meals tax,
taxpayers.
out of a meals
We
tax.
saved $40 million for future taxpayers, Jim.
Understood.
That's real.
Understood.
We're doing
Understood.
that.
Understood. We all voted for it, and we also said that money's gonna go
So
there.
the dividend
And over the
there
years,
is
people have tried to take it to
huge.
put it into other stuff.
Dividend is
So,
much larger than what you're talking about here.
understood,
So,
understood.
Yeah, so it's a great story. I mean, it's difficult that we should be arguing about this. But it's just the approach that was the disagreement over.
Yeah.
And the approach to me is, use this as an opportunity to say, okay, what are we doing well right now? What are we still not addressing? And the answer is, I don't know. I know I know things when people come to me and say, I'd like to be able to do this. And my answer to that typically is, we can't afford to do that. And the reason why is because we're trying to keep those numbers down. We're trying to stay within the existing levy
But,
limit to do that.
So if people want more stuff, then we have to have the discussion of it's not level service. We've got to provide more services.
Well,
That discussion is a totally different topic, but if we're still staying level service,
Mm-hmm.
what services are people clamoring for that we're not giving them under level service? Are the roads not getting plowed fast enough, or is the,
Well, I guess
you name it?
I guess the disagreement here, the difference in approach is that I'd like to get you to a position where if you maintain all your buildings properly, you're gonna be able to pay for them without even have to go to an override to do that. So there's ways to address that too, that we could do that most people don't do. The really good communities, the really ones that can afford that, are the very few. And we're on a trajectory right now to do those kind of things, without going above and beyond the 2.5 limit. And I guess that's where I'm trying to target to stay at the 2.5 limit and not go above that, but by the same, and address as much as I can within that levy limit, and not have to go above that for any reason. Any reason.
I mean, I had, in the last presentation I made to you on this topic, I had provided you a full list of service needs unmet and imposed. So,
I saw a parking lot behind Town Hall.
you want to pick on that one, Jim?
Behind.
You know,
Well,
there's a lot more,
I
a
would
lot of
like-
other
I would
things.
like 10 other things, but as a taxpayer, I don't want to pay for them. I didn't, honestly, I didn't see stuff on that list that I thought people would,
You've had people
pay
at the
more for.
table here asking for things on that list.
at which,
Yeah, I mean,
for example, I just,
The
that's
town
that's-
historian, take care of our cemeteries, walkable sidewalks.
I mean, those are the kinds of things that we're trying to fix within the existing levy limit. We're not asking to go above that. I guess that's our point, is that we hear all those issues, and that's why it's important for you to hear that too. It's easy to say, cut the budget. It's an easy thing to say. I agree with you. But think about the implications of doing that over the longer term, unless you're in a position to say, over the longer term, we're gonna be here, and we won't have to do that anymore. We'll stay at a certain level, the value will be there, and we'll support where we're gonna go from there. It's a difference in approach. Ultimately, it's your decision. I'm just telling you, as you pay us to be your advisors on these things. I'm telling you from my professional position, and because I've done this, I wouldn't recommend you do that at this point. I think that's the track that we're on.
when I see a column that says free cash balance, necessary component of sound municipal financial management, providing budgetary, at the target of 2 million, actual 6.7, and it says, this is the highest it's ever been, improved by 987,000.
But that's one period in time. I guess that's the point.
But it's that same, but that's that is the item that keeps getting carried for at least the last
Did you see
number
the
of
item
years.
above that, the undesignated fund balance in the target range? What's being proposed here, what's actually going to drop us to the very bottom, if not below, of our target range for undesignated fund balance. You know, I thought, I mean, we had a
One that
very
says
good group of
improved
people
up.
on the audit committee, you know, review that, and every policy board, you know, accepted that. You know, so I agree with Bill that, you know, if we want to go counter to the, you know, the financial policies that we've all thought very hard about and put a lot of effort into, I agree with him. I think we should have a financial summit and maybe revisit these things.
But I think the point that you've all said, though, is that the taxpayers are asking, and that's why you need to have that conversation. You need to have a but I wouldn't have it in an isolation perspective. I would say, let's explain to me, you know, one of the things we don't do well as a town, and a lot of places don't do this, is that we don't talk about the things we're not doing. We talk about all the things we are doing, but never the things we aren't doing and what we should be doing. Because those are things that are really important to be equally successful. And also what the real needs are. There are needs out there that aren't being met because people know we just can't afford to do it and we should be doing it.
Fire substation, how many times have people sat at the table here and said response time on the west side of Foxborough, you know, isn't good enough? I mean, so we do have fire substation as, you know, one of our long-term goals here on the west side.
I mean, those are all, and you need to hear that collectively and then make an informed decision at that point. I struggle when boards make isolated decisions, and I really struggle with that because my professional training tells me you got to do it when you've heard it from everyone and make a really, truly informed decision. You know, when we did the financial policies, we met with a lot of people around that table from all different walks of life. There were school people, there were finance people, there were professional finance people, there were, you know, the people that really understood what this all means. And you collectively in the finance committee, the AdCom, the school committee, all agreed in the end that was the way we should go with that. I understand your argument completely, and I'm sympathetic to your point. I guess where I'm trying to encourage you to do is don't do it in isolation mode. That's my perspective.
And I get it, but
I'll shut up after that.
I don't consider it in an isolation mode. I've been looking at it. I've been listening to school committee meetings. I've been going to the AdCom. I've been watching a population that's been stagnant for year after year, and our taxes are going up with the same level of service. And 3/4 of 1% is causing this much aggravation is beyond me. That we can't figure out when we're going up 2% and 3% on other years on spending. But
It's actually a little bit more fragile financial ecosystem than you think. You know, the fact that it's actually going to drive us in 3 years to do this, you know, down to that low point, in my mind, it makes the point. But I agree that we all want to get to the same place, and I believe if things happen on Route 1 the way we expect them to happen, I firmly believe we're going to get there.
As do I.
On a permanent basis, sustained.
But into a 30-year lease, well, about halfway through it, if it hasn't done it yet, someone either miscalculated, because I think it is doing what it's supposed to be doing.
No,
I think it's doing what it was promised to be doing.
What is not being discussed at all in this is the fact that we lose over $1 million a year in charter school payments. That's that state aid money.
$2 million now.
Well, so that's a discussion with the school committee, honestly. They're keeping status quo. I don't even want to get into that discussion.
No, but I mean, it's an impact to us in terms of overall revenues, Jim. If we were not getting that charter school hit every year,
this would be a different discussion.
This would be a different discussion completely.
So if that ceiling was pushed down, that discussion would come a lot faster, and then they would look at different ways to maybe you do different programs over there. Well, I'm saying, all of a sudden the ceiling's here, and we're having these discussions about summits, and it's a good idea to bring everyone together. If this hadn't been brought up, it would have been another year of not doing that.
Well, I welcome the opportunity to discuss it. The question, you know, if you disagree with, and clearly you do, disagree with the way we're doing things, that's the way you do it. I don't think it's, until somebody tells me you disagree with the way we're doing it, I'm going to continue on the same track. This is the right way to do it. Raise the issue. Let's discuss it. I would fully support your position if you went to a meeting in May or June of this year, and said, let's get everybody together and figure this out for fiscal 2019. Would fully support that. I think that's the better way to go.
Okay.
Just as a side footnote, since you mentioned charter, you know, the one major thing that changed on the revenue side from the last time we discussed this was the state aid numbers. They've come out. They were less than forecast by about 40,000, which I was actually anticipating or hoping for a positive bump there, because we had very conservatively added $150,000 to the charter school growth in that assessment beyond the normal pretty substantial growth that they have, and that still wasn't enough for that line.
So it's actually $40,000 less.
So I mean, that's why our state aid, again, this year is coming in less.
But when people say to us, where's that money going we're getting from the stadium and the other major, the development projects, that's what's happening. We're making that difference up. So all those other communities that get to state aid, they support their budget with the state aid. We're basically supporting it with our local revenues.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the difference. That's a huge difference, and that's the reason why we're not able to do more in reducing taxes in that regard. We're effectively making it up on our own.
Okay.
That's the important piece of that discussion. Good debate, though.
Well,
I understand.
Amicably, we're going to be on different sides on a vote on this one, because I think this is the year that we could do it without the sky falling down in 2020. I honestly think we can. So,
Listen,
and I said it at the beginning, I respect the work that you're doing,
I understand.
the finance and all the committees.
And I respect your position,
but-
I do.
But I've never seen this board or the other boards question to bring it down. I just haven't, you know?
Good place to do it. Good discussion to have. Don't dispute that at all.
So,
I just had a question. In our previous discussions, we talked about one of the things, the senior population is financially the most vulnerable. And we talked about that legislation that was introduced, that Reading had,
Yeah.
And we talked about maybe talking to Representative Barrows and everything. Has anything been done with that?
Yeah, actually, been meeting with the Board of Assessors. We had our second meeting tonight to talk about all of the senior tax breaks. The one that, the legislation piece that we had focused on, in addition to recommending enhancements to senior exemptions at the annual town meeting on a variety of different programs, but the legislation we were looking at had to do with Sudbury, which is a means-tested senior exemption, which seems to be pretty popular up there, and I imagine it would be when your average tax bill is $12,500, more than double what ours is. But you have some people got in early, house is appreciated incredibly, and they have about 120, 130 people who are taking advantage of this program. And so the Board of Assessors is definitely interested in looking at it. It's a legislative process, so it's not something that would be put in place for next year, at best, assuming the legislative process the following year. And it's something that's on their list to continue to study. But the things that they do want to go forward with are lowering the eligibility requirements for what's called a 41C elderly exemption in terms of age, income, assets, reducing those. Senior work-off program, we can now go up from $1,000 to $1,500, and if somebody's physically unable to perform the work, they can designate somebody under the new legislation to do the work for them to earn it. And then we do have tax deferrals. So a tax deferral is, somebody comes in and they agree that, and their bank agrees, if they have a mortgage, that they don't have to pay their taxes, until the house sells. And then nobody has taken that yet. So the one thing that we can do there, where the requirements have changed, is we can increase eligible income limits, which is what we're going to propose. The Board of Assessors approves that. And then the other thing is, the state is now given the locality the ability to set the interest rate that their tax deferral earns. So it had been set at 8%. Sudbury had gone out and got special legislation to take control over it, but now the town could, if we go forward with this, the town could set it anywhere from 8 to 0 on a tax deferral. The other one here, the Sudbury plan. It's a very interesting plan. It does have some significant financial ramifications for the town. I'm sorry, the deferral does, not this one. Let's strike that. The one here for the means-tested senior exemption, the one rub with that one, the way that it works is that it just redistributes that burden to all of the other taxpayers. So, so you're saying there's another one in Reading?
Right, and that's, my next question was, what was the difference between the Sudbury one and the Reading one?
I haven't seen the Reading one, but I know I will now.
Yeah, and the easiest thing to do is take existing legislation and
Right.
just plug in the town of Foxborough. The legislation's been vetted, it's been approved, the language has been vetted. It can be a late file, it can be pushed, so, but I'd like to,
It does require Board of Selectmen approval,
right,
town meeting approval.
yeah, but
Right, so that we want to be,
But you can start the process and maybe have it ready for.
yeah, so potentially could be ready for the next,
Yeah.
for the next annual.
Right.
Yes. But, so that's the Sudbury one, and they do. Theirs is really well documented in a variety of different ways, not just legislation. But I'll be very interested to see how the Reading one varies from the one in Sudbury.
Right, and I think it's important I think means testing is important, that's an important
Yeah,
component.
the way the means testing, in essence, the trigger is the mean testing for the Sudbury plan is the circuit breaker that the state tax allows, Department of Revenue on your state income taxes. You know, if you can meet that threshold, then based on certain other qualifications, you know, lived in the home, you know, X number of years, et cetera, then you're in the program, you know, for an exemption. So, and I looked at those criteria for the circuit breaker, and you know, they're more liberal than some of these other income and asset requirements. So, so that's why something like this, you know, might actually, you know, be a winner for the affected taxpayer. But like I said, it's the way this legislation is written, is it distributes that tax break back to all of the other taxpayers. So that's an important policy question for this Board of Assessors as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I think you need some direction. Is that what you're looking for?
I mean, we're, you know, it's, oh, defer to Bill.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, we're, you know, as you heard, we're balanced. You know, at this point, there's still plenty of time in the process, you know, between now and the end of March, first week in April at the latest, to, you know, to go in any different directions, you know, that are being contemplated. And if that's the will of the board, that's the will of the board. And you know, obviously, at one of your meetings between now and the end of March, beginning of April, and usually it's like the first week in April, that's when we ask for the board to, you know, to vote your recommendations on the budget. So there's still a significant role for this board to play.
Again, I just stand, I appreciate the discussion. I think it's absolutely a necessary conversation to have. I just would appreciate the board considering a more rounded out policy discussion to do this. And I respect everybody's position. I respect the work that you did on this, Jim, because I know how passionate you feel about it, and I respect that. I'm just giving you my best advice, that's all.
And in the same note, I'd ask the board to consider the bigger picture of the history that we've had and where we're going with this on what we have here in town with respect to residents.
I want at least until the next meeting just to kind of go through this and, you know, what you provided.
Can you wait one more meeting?
Well,
Oh, you've
yeah.
got,
Yeah, I mean,
you've
you got-
got
you got time.
February,
You got
March,
time.
right?
You've got time.
February and
Yeah,
March.
Okay. All right, yeah, we'll put this on the agenda for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Let us digest this. And I don't, you know, I don't necessarily disagree with Jim. I actually agree with him more than I disagree with him. But I'm just want to wrap my hands around the timing, whether now's a good time or, you know, look at big picture.
Yeah, I agree with them too. I don't think there's anybody around this table who doesn't want to reduce taxes.
Right.
We all do.
To join that, you know, 12.5% of the communities in the state to do it.
Yep. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
That's it. All right, good discussion, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Randy. just the boards, well, my report, I guess, so. Your report too, your report first.
All right, Selectmen's update. So, in case anybody hasn't noticed, Patriots won the Super Bowl. I am off the hook with my bet, thank you.
Yeah.
Notice I am not wearing a Falcons jersey. The mayor of Flowery Branch, Georgia, received a Tom Brady authentic Patriot jersey. So he will wear that at a city council meeting on February 16th, and he will get to feel what it's like to be a champion.
That's right.
So,
We better make sure we
We can
watch
have-
that to
yeah,
see
can
if
we
they
get a
confirm it's
photo or
actually
something?
happening.
yeah, I actually
Trust
reached,
but verify.
I actually had a couple emails going back and forth with their city clerk, and they are gonna take pictures. I'm gonna see if we can get a feed,
There you
a
go,
live feed, live video.
Put that on the highlights at the end of the year.
there you go.
It also turns out that the mayor is a PGA professional.
He put that on the PGA.com.
Yeah, so the PGA actually picked up on the story, and there was an article on PGA.com about the.
It was a great article.
It was a great
It was a
article.
really
It was
good
a good
article.
picture, too.
I think we tried to, did we try to extract that article to include it? Can we do that? Include it on our website?
Yeah, we could do that.
Do a link to it? Because it's really a good, it's a really good article.
Yeah, no, they did a good job. So we have a
Thank you.
a proclamation that was read on Saturday by Chris.
Yep.
Would you just read that into the record officially?
Should I read it with?
The same enthusiasm that,
That I have. Town of Foxborough proclamation. Whereas the town of Foxborough recognizes the excellence and success of the hometown New England Patriots in their journey to Super Bowl 51 as they challenge the Atlanta Falcons. And whereas the New England Patriots' participation in Super Bowl 51 in Houston, Texas is the most appearances in a Super Bowl by any team in the history of the National Football League. I'll read that line one more time. Whereas the New England Patriots' participation in Super Bowl 51 in Houston, Texas is the most appearances in a Super Bowl by any team in the history of the National Football League. And whereas with a 2016-2017 record of 14-2 and winning the American Football Conference division title, the New England Patriots have won the most consecutive division titles by any team in the history of the National Football League. And whereas the town of Foxborough acknowledges the Kraft family for the commitment to excellence with the Patriots team since 1994 to the town and the residents of Foxborough. And whereas the town recognizes and admires that the Patriots have the NFL's longest tenured active head coach and the coach with the most playoff wins in Bill Belichick. And whereas the town recognizes the countless accomplishments of its quarterback, Tom Brady, and the entire Patriots team for setting the standard for winning in the National Football League. And whereas we recognize and take great pride in knowing that the New England Patriots embody the concept of teamwork, dedication, respect, and commitment that define all successful teams. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Selectmen that Sunday, February 5th, 2017 be designated as New England Patriots Day in the town of Foxborough. In witness whereof we have set our hand and caused the seal of the town of Foxborough to be affixed on this third day of February 2017, signed by the board.
Okay, that was one. And we have another one from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the House of Representatives. Be it hereby known to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to the town of Foxborough in recognition of the town of Foxborough being the proud home of the four-time, now five-time, Super Bowl champion New England Patriots, about to earn one more. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all endeavors. Given this fourth day of February 2017 at the State House, Boston, Massachusetts, by Robert A. DeLeo, Speaker of the House, offered by Jay Barrows, State Rep. So I want to thank Jay for getting that done. I want to thank Jim, Linda Walsh, Paul Farmer for all your efforts on the Common.
Should add the Moms Clubs.
And
There's two
the Moms
clubs.
Club, I mean, basically the town in general, how they rallied in support, and the rally on the Common, and, I'm sure most of the town was there when they came home, up at the stadium, and, it was really, really good to see, to embrace that. So, thank you, everybody that participated and worked and, came out in support of the Pats. So, I think we made the national stage, Bill?
We did, actually. So I would like, just as part of my updates, again, offer my personal congratulations from our office to the Patriots and the Kraft family for their success in Super Bowl 51. Had to be, in my opinion, probably one of the most exciting sports event I think I've seen ever. It was one for the ages in that regard, and I think that I likened it, as I said this afternoon, to the Red Sox winning 4 games in a row after beating the Yankees. While that was 4 games, this was a quarter of football that I have never seen in my entire career. So, to them, congratulations to Coach Belichick and to Tom Brady and to the entire offensive team for staying on the field as long as they could to score enough points and to make it all happen. And to James White for winning really winning the MVP, according to Tom, who said that he actually gave him the trip to Florida and the truck, I guess, that goes with it. So congratulations to both of them.
Just as a side note, though, there's no vehicle given away anymore.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, last year was the first time they didn't give away a vehicle, and they didn't this year either.
No.
I just found that out a couple hours ago.
That's too bad to hear that. So,
Yeah. But he got to go to Florida.
He got to go to Florida. And I'm sure he was probably pretty tired. He would have preferred to go to home and get some rest. But congratulations to him and to Tom for sharing that with him. Again, thanks for the rally on the Common on Saturday, and to Farmer Printing for doing all those last-minute signs, and for one that he prepared actually yesterday morning, where a number of us got together early in the morning. We're all blurry-eyed after the night before, and got out there at 7 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning to hold up a sign that saying congratulations to the team, and where ABC, it's a Good Morning America, actually came out and filmed us doing that first thing in the morning. So it was great to be able to get some national recognition for the town and to be able to congratulate the team on that level. It will be. I also wanted to thank the city of Flowery Branch, Georgia, for the goodwill basket that he sent to us. The city manager's office and our office worked to do a goodwill basket, not really a friendly bet, but more of a goodwill basket coming from both ends. They gave us. They sent along a collection of edible items from the area of Flowery Branch. Wrigley Gum is actually manufactures all the gum products from around the country out of Flowery Branch itself. And just for everyone's edification, Flowery Branch is the actual home of the Atlanta Falcons. Their organization is housed in Flowery Branch, and their practice facility is located in Flowery Branch. They, of course, play their games at the Georgia Dome, which is now going to be demolished in place of a brand-new stadium, which is spectacular, by the way. I guess the Mercedes-Benz Stadium is going to be open next year. Our regional, on the couple other items, the regional dispatch was planning to meet on Thursday, but it looks like we may be postponing that meeting due in light of the storm. All indications are we're going to get a pretty significant storm on Thursday morning, early midnight, into the lake commuter traffic tomorrow on Thursday evening. So that could impact services, local services, schools, even services even from our own offices at some point potentially. So we're going to play that by ear. We're going to get our emergency crew together tomorrow and see where it stands. But right now, that's the indication we're getting from MEMA, is that it will be a rather significant storm impacting our town and the entire region, for most of the state actually, on Thursday morning, early Thursday morning into Thursday evening. The Foxborough Power Forward program, which is our new electric aggregation program. We've gotten word out about that. I actually did a recent cable show about that too. And by the way, that cable show has been put on our website, so in case anybody wants to see that, you will see that that's reflected on that. You can just click on that. We'll give you a lot of information. We brought the representatives from Peregrine out to meet with us on last week and that show is now been aired.
What kind of feedback are you getting from residents on it?
So far, so good. There's some questions, of course, people, and we went to, Mary Beth and I attended a meeting along with the Peregrine rep at our seniors meeting, which we meet once a month at the COA. And there was a lot of people in attendance there, and we answered all their questions, and they were very appreciative of that. So I'm sure folks do have questions, but there's another meeting scheduled for tomorrow night at the senior center. So for anyone, and that's just for the general public, in case anybody wants to go, it'll be again at 6:30, starting at 6:30 at the senior center, if anybody wants to attend that. We're in the middle of town reports right now, and just want to make sure we're trying to get those finished by this week, right? Trying to finish up, so might be a good project to work on on Thursday if it snows. We're looking into the possibility of looking at Complete Streets as a new program. We're investigating those options. It's something that offers another round of funding for local projects. And we're not eligible for it yet, but we're looking at the possibility of becoming eligible for it. So that's something that we're taking a good hard look at. And then the capstone project with the students from Northeastern University officially kicked off this past week. Paige Duncan met with about 50 students from the university, and they'll be shooting to try and wrap up their project sometime at the end of April, maybe early May, and give a presentation on what their findings are. So that should be very, very interesting. That's about $150,000 worth of work for some food and some pats in the back and some help for some of these students to get their degrees. So we're really appreciative of that. That's all I have for now. We're continue to work on the budget. We got another meeting tomorrow night with the AdCom to finish up some stuff on budgets on insurance and for pensions and looking at those budget factors. Mary Beth and I have already started the process of meeting with the unions and the local government group that will take a look at our insurance coverage to see if in fact we need to make further adjustments on that. In light of all the changes in insurance, there are still some major question marks now, particularly at the federal level because of the discussion about rolling back the Obamacare provisions and what that means for coverage here in Massachusetts on a statewide level. But on a local level, we have not seen our rate increases as of yet, but it could be anywhere from 7 to 10%. And that's what we're anticipating at this point in our budget process. That's just based on, but having said that, it may be less in the actual budgets if in fact we're able to change our current plan structure. That's what we're looking to try and save at this point. So that's where we're at.
Can
Lots
I just
more.
ask a question? What's the schedule for the warrant articles for the Maytown meeting?
Do you have that? Yes?
We started to compile them?
Yeah, we have a
we start-
draft. We've started a draft. I think we're still waiting on a lot of language changes. I think we're scheduled to share the draft at the next meeting. Is that what we're,
Well, yes, so the deadline's February 15th,
yeah.
so, yeah.
We should be able, the next meeting, you should be
Yeah.
able to see a draft by then.
The first,
And the end of the year, year in review, Caitlin's been working on that piece.
Yes.
She's actually shared it with Mike at Cable, so we'll actually have a film for you on that,
next meeting.
probably
At
for
the
next
next
meeting as well. So lots of good stuff to talk about.
I didn't sign a release. Did anybody sign a release to use your likeness in this video?
It's always good to look back on how you looked in that, and how you can look forward.
No, I don't like to look at anything.
All right. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We did action items, right?
Yep. All right.
So, actually, all my questions are for David.
Oh, then move to close.
So we can all leave?
No, I also have questions for you,
Oh,
but
okay.
they'll
I
be
know
after
I
the
can
meeting.
guess.
Which is, David, how nervous were you that you might have to wear a Falcons jersey in that not fourth quarter part of the game?
Through the first half, I was pretty
Very
nervous.
He was actually hanging out with a few Falcons fans, right?
I was
And they
surrounded
were-
by Falcons fans.
You're kidding me.
No. No.
You have
Not
relatives
on
from
purpose.
Georgia?
It was not by choice, but.
Yeah. Yep. So, and unlike Falcon fans, I behaved like I was there. I've been there before.
Didn't get
When did
nervous,
you
did
start?
they?
And when did you start to think that you might not have to wear a Falcons jersey?
Overtime.
So it was only overtime that you.
Coin toss, yeah.
Pretty much,
Coin toss.
pretty much.
Excellent. Very good. All right. Well, that's about it. I will see you guys in 2 weeks.
Thanks,
Thanks, Vera.
Thanks, sir. Move to close?
Second?
Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.
Night.